Hello, my name is Chandler Klebs, and this video is directed toward George Ortega and his show, Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. And particularly, this video is about pantheism and what I think of pantheism and how it relates to my beliefs about determinism and how free will is an illusion, because George Ortega is pantheist, meaning he equates God with the universe. And I've read a little bit about pantheism because of George Ortega, because everything has a cause, you know. That's kind of the point. And so I had some questions about pantheism, and I thought George Ortega, as well as anybody who calls himself a pantheist, would be able to answer my questions, because see, I call myself atheist because I don't believe in the monotheistic God, and a lot of that is because that requires a belief in free will. Because even the theological determinists who believe that humans don't have a free will because God is controlling them, they believe that God has free will. And they don't know what they're saying because since our decisions are either caused, which means the infinite causal regression makes free will impossible, or they're uncaused, meaning they're just basically random, and so we do things for no reason. So if God has a free will, then God does things for no reason, which is basically what, the Calvinists teach, that God sends some to heaven and some to hell for no reason whatsoever. So free will, the closest you can come to free will is basically a random will, where things happen for no reason, whether humans or God does things for no reason, which is just totally bizarre when you think about it, because things are either caused or uncaused. There's no third alternative known as free will, where you're the first cause or the self-cause of your own decisions. And so this is really important to understand, is that understanding that free will is an illusion kind of cancels out belief in a God that has free will. And that's a very important thing to understand. And so I think this might have something to do with why atheists in general tend to be more open to the determinist position. Some still believe in free will, but I think that's mostly just because they came out of religions where they were so indoctrinated with free will that it's hard for them to overcome. And it took me a long time to get it too. But anyway, pantheism is interesting to me because, I call myself atheist, not believing in the traditional monotheistic God of Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. But pantheism, where God is the universe, well, I've heard George Ortega talk about it in tons of his episodes of his show, Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. And part of that is that it makes sense, because if God is omnipresent, meaning everywhere, well, the universe, by definition, is everything that exists, everywhere. So the universe is omnipresent, and similarly, since the universe is all that exists, it has to be all-powerful, because all power that there could be can only be had in the universe, and we're all part of the universe. So whatever power somebody has, it's part of the universe. So yes, the universe is all powerful if you want to talk about it that way. Of course, we don't have the power of free will, because that's not a power anyway. In fact, having a causal will where we do things that we're caused to do, we do things we want to do, even though we don't choose our desires, and that's the whole thing to understand about that. But anyway, back to pantheism. See, I'm not so sure if pantheism is right for me or not, because see, when most people talk about God, they're talking about the invisible man in the sky somewhere who exists outside of time, outside of the universe, and they say that God created the universe, which makes no sense because God, if God existed, God would be part of the universe anyway, because the universe's existence. And so I guess if you have a different meaning of universe, then maybe you could try to say that God created the universe. But then you have the whole who created God question, and then you have the who created the thing that created God, and the infinite causal regression makes it makes a few things impossible. It makes the Christian God that I was raised to believe in impossible, because like God, if God has free will, then that's just illogical. But it also makes the philosophic God. And let me talk about the philosophic God. The philosophical God is basically a first cause. You've probably all heard the first cause argument, where they say that everything has a cause, but then they say that there can't be an infinite causal regression. And so they say, well, God is the first cause. But the problem with that is that not everything has a cause if God doesn't have a cause, because God is the first cause. So I already know by definition the philosophical God can't exist, because then God would be random, because if there's no cause, then God exists for no reason. So randomness would be God. But I don't believe in randomness, so I'm atheist by definition of I don't believe in randomness if God is random or God existed randomly. And that's also why I'm a determinist, because I believe everything has a cause. And what's interesting about this is that George Ortega, well, he gets the illusion of free will, obviously, that determinism is true, or causality. And so, like, the idea that we can choose free of causality and yet still be responsible for it is out the window. But I really wanted George Ortega's views. I wanted to hear what George Ortega says, or any pantheists out there who happen to watch this video and comment. Like, I'm just genuinely curious, because, like, God being the universe, well, it makes sense in a few ways. I'm not so sure if I would ever attach the label of pantheism to myself, because when somebody asks me if I believe in God, well, I know that they're not talking about the universe most of the time. Most of them are Christian where I come from. So if they ask me if I believe in God and I say yes, well, then they'll ask me to come to their church and worship Jesus. But so that's the Christian God. So if they ask me if I believe in God, well, my answer is simply no, because I already know why I don't believe in the Christian God. And similarly, it would apply if I was in a Muslim, Jewish, or Hindu culture. Similarly, because I don't believe in those gods for very similar reasons. There's the whole free will thing. But here's the deal. But if somebody asks me if I believe in the universe, or if the universe exists, I'm going to be like, yeah, duh. That's a crazy question. We know the universe exists. What's that supposed to mean? But see, people ask you if you believe God exists, but they don't ask you if you believe the universe exists, because it's just assumed, since the universe is existence, that the universe exists. And so if God is the universe, then God exists. If God is outside of the universe, well, that means God is outside of existence, therefore God does not exist. So basically, you could be, I don't know, can you be like a pantheistic atheist? Like, does that work? Where you're like, well, I don't believe in this God of these holy books of these major world religions, but, well, the closest thing to God would be the universe. And that's kind of interesting to me, like the idea that for some people, like, the universe is sacred, the natural world is sacred. And, you know, I read this free Kindle book, and I think the name of it was the Pantheist Worldview, and it was fairly short, and I think I learned a lot. And it said something very, very interesting. It said something about how, like, pantheists generally oppose anthropocentrism. And if you've never heard that big long word, anthropocentrism, basically it means a view that is human-centered, like that everything that exists, or at least this world, exists totally and completely only for humans, which is just absurd. The idea that humans are the goal, that they, like, you know, Christians believe, like, humans are created in God's image, and all the rest of the animals are just crap that exist only so you can kill and eat them. And people are cruel to animals. Like, I'm totally like all animal rights and pro-vegetarian and vegan because I just don't like the way animals are treated. And so George Ortega and I agreed on that. About the animals, you know, I highly agree that we need to make a happier world, and part of that is not torturing animals and seeing them as insignificant or less than us, because they're living things just like we are. And so I just, you know, have this sanctity of life thing, not in like the Catholic sense of sanctity of life, but just like I have respect for life. Like, I don't want to cause pain to other living creatures because I don't want to feel pain. And so I'm just so pro-life in that way that I think pantheists are generally good people for me to talk to. Like, I think they're safe. And so I wanted George Ortega's views on that, and any pantheist who happens to be listening to this video. Well, comment or make a video response or something. Bye.